All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sasquatch Watch Radio. Today is Monday, June 24th, 2024. Glad that all of you could join us. And Gary, how are you doing tonight?
Pretty good, Billy. How are you, brother?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. I'm just glad the weather was just a little bit more cooperative today and gave us some 80s.
Yeah, well, it's pretty hot back here. We still haven't had any rain.
Yeah, we haven't had any here either.
It's been rough.
Matter of fact, I work for the Virginia DEQ, so they just issued a drought warning, obviously. So for most of the state of Virginia is now under a drought warning.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good call.
So just got to be careful using the water.
Yep.
So
stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated, but might need to limit watering the lawn and washing the car and that kind of thing with the wells.
It's going to be a rough summer.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be. All right, so we've already got several folks in the chat room. Buttworm's always one of the first ones in, so we welcome him. And then Mick is multitasking tonight.
That's right.
Apparently he's building a shelving unit for his wife. He knows who the boss is. Yeah, he knows.
Oh, yeah. Happy wife, happy life.
And then we got Craig in there. So we thank you all. So tonight's going to be a little bit of a different show. Since we couldn't find a guest for this Monday, everybody was busy. I guess conferences and whatever else is going on out there. We decided we would just do a discussion show. So this is where you guys can come in and help us a little bit. Especially if you're in the chat. You can send us some questions, to me or to Gary, any questions that you have. Not going to promise we're going to answer them, but we'll do our best. And then we're just going to have some discussions tonight about everybody's favorite topic, Bigfoot. So feel free to throw us some questions. And then we got a little surprise tonight at the halfway point is me and Gary have listened to it, and Gary's wife said it needs to become the theme song for this show. So we'll play that for everybody and see what you all think. See if that should be the theme show. So
hi Moo, hi Emmy. Craig McCain keeps texting.
Oh yeah, they're there. They know you're here.
That's my fan group.
That's your fan group. They're out there holding up lighters.
Let's hope not. They'll burn the house down.
So how's the camp going?
Well, while we're waiting on a question, I kind of had something that I wanted to touch on a little bit.
Okay.
Over the years, I have had several thoughts as to what Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call it, whatever your preference is, what it is. And I have been through, I stick with it. It's an animal. That's one of my main things. But I have flip-flopped back and forth. Is it a relic hominid? Is it a hominin? Is it Nephilim from the Bible? And one of the subjects that I wanted to touch on is one thing that I kind of have ruled out now completely is the theory that it's a Nephilim. And the reason that I say that is because in Genesis 6, that's everybody talks about Genesis 6, that there were giants.
Yeah.
On the earth then and after that. It does call them the Nephilim, which was, it's biblical. I don't want to get into it. If you're interested in it, you can read it. But the thing that I want to hit on is you should read the whole thing. Yes. Not just the part where it says that there's giants in there, because it says in Genesis 6 that there were giants, but it also says that the Nephilim were men of great renown. It doesn't say that they were hairy beasts or some type of wild man or some type of monster or whatever. It just says that they were men of great renown.
Right.
So I think that if it would have been a Nephilim, then it would have, listed, it would have said that it was some type of animal and not a man. Right. So I've completely worked out the Nephilim. I don't believe that it is Nephilim.
Yeah, and the main reason I ruled out Nephilim is because to say that Bigfoot is Nephilim is to say that God's word is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason God destroyed the earth at that time. And the reason was because it was all badness all the time. That included the Nephilim. When they had come here, because we'll make this short. So when the angels came and had relations with the humans, the offspring was the Nephilim. God saw it fit to destroy the earth. That included those fleshly Nephilim.
Yep.
So to say that they still exist says that God failed, and we know that that's not possible.
That's right. That's right.
So
it looks like Buttworm has a question here.
All right.
If I can click it up.
There you go.
Have you seen a Sasquatch? I have. I talked about my encounter several times. It was probably 2006. I went to pick a guy up that lives probably about a half a mile from my house up on the ridge. And as we was coming back off of his ridge, it stepped off the road in front of me. And I had to stop about 3 feet from it to keep from hitting it. And I've always believed in Bigfoot. I'd studied Bigfoot ever since I was a child, Sasquatch, whatever. And when I saw it, it completely it changed everything. Changed everything. I went from just believing in it to knowing what I saw.
Yeah. And as for me, I'm not ready to say I've seen one, simply because I've had glimpses of things, but until I can see something close up, I'm not going to call it a Sasquatch. So in that point, I have not had a sighting. We'll call them encounters.
I've had
encounters
over the years with some of the investigations things that we've done, Billy. We've had some
Yeah.
really strange encounters.
Yeah.
I've had rocks thrown at me. I can't necessarily rule out people, but I know black bears don't throw rocks.
Yep.
We had that one scream that was recorded, and I don't know if it's still around or not, but that was probably one of the most terrifying things I've ever heard.
Yep.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of strange activity.
Yeah.
Audible footsteps one night.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think that place was just loaded. I mean,
yeah, that place that you're talking about is pretty close to Lake Anna. If anybody knows where Lake Anna's at, over in Virginia, it's over not far from Richmond. But it's in that area, and that area is just, there's lots and lots of stories over there, people that have had sightings. Very active, and I think that, being around that, of course, now the lake's not even safe to swim in. So if anybody's been paying attention to the news, you'll learn that several people are hospitalized because the lake is contaminated with different types of bacteria that's putting people in the hospital.
Yep.
So water supply is not good there right now. What's it from? It's anybody's guess. There's been stories that, some of the farms there don't have the area fenced off, so the cattle go right down into the lake, wade around in the lake. They think it could be runoff from farms, that kind of thing that's causing like the algae blooms and different types of things. Keep in mind too, there's a nuclear plant on Lake Anna.
Yep.
Yeah, which is one of the main reasons for the lake, is to cool all that, those things, cool the reactors and all that. So it could be a number of things. So who knows? Until they do further testing on the water, nobody really knows. So, yeah, thank you for the question. Appreciate the question, Buttworm.
That was a good one.
Yep. Let's see. So you addressed the Nephilim. It was funny. I was actually going to address that.
Was you really?
So it's funny. You and I have like that same brain links going.
I told my wife somebody needs to write a book on that, because there's all kinds of books out there.
Yeah.
And somebody needs to write a book on that. That's why Bigfoot is not a Nephilim.
Right.
But I mean, in the same respects too, that's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've researched it a lot. And just because, that's what I believe, that doesn't mean that's what everybody should believe.
Right.
I'm a firm believer.
Well, everybody,
you got to take everything as it comes.
Yeah, everybody has the right to do their own research. And again, the only way to research that one's to go straight to go to the Bible. That's the only way to research that one.
Genesis chapter 6.
Yeah.
I'll even put it out there. Genesis 6. Read it.
Yep. And just so y'all know, if there's anybody watching this on Facebook, Facebook is no longer getting along with StreamYard, which is where we stream from. If you're on YouTube, you're good. But Facebook, for some reason, has started blocking certain things. So if you guys are trying to chat with us through Facebook, we probably are not getting the messages. So if it's not too much trouble, just click on it and go right over to YouTube, and then that way you can find the chat in there. So.
And I just want to let Nick know, if you're in fear for your life based on your comment right there, give us that signal, and we might be able to send you some help.
So we got a guest lined up for next week, so that way you don't have to sit and listen to me and Gary rattle on. So we'll be good for next week. I've got a couple really good requests out there to some, I guess I'll call them big names. A lot of people have seen them on different shows and documentaries and stuff. Just got to work with their schedules, that's all, because they're busy people.
And I don't know if anybody out there that's watching, if you don't know Billy knows everybody in the Bigfoot world. I mean, not everybody.
I don't mean they'll agree to come on the show.
Well, that's true. But me and my wife go to the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival. We've missed one, but we've been to every other one that they've had, and that's in Townsend, Tennessee, out next to Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge. And every time I go up and I meet somebody and I talk to them, and they say, "Oh, do you research Bigfoot?" And I say, "Yeah, I'm part of a Sasquatch Watch." And they say, "Sasquatch Watch, who runs that?" And I tell them, "It's Billy Willard." And they're like, "Oh, I know Billy."
Yeah, that's just because I'm an old fogey.
I don't feel like the Lone Ranger.
All right, let's see. So, topic I can come up with. So, first footprint cast that I came across, where I came across a trackway, was over in part of Fauquier County at a wildlife management area. It was in a power line cut, and I casted that. The print was 15 inches long by 6 feet, or 6 feet. That'd be a big one, wouldn't it?
That'd be a monster.
6 inches wide. And there was a total of 3 tracks. We casted the best out of the 3. And that was back, goodness sakes, I was probably back in 2009. Yeah, about 2009. And that's the cast I used to carry around in the truck. I've told the story before where I went to Fort Belvoir to do a a quote for them on a tank job, and all the military police do when they do their searches of the truck, they open the toolbox, and I forgot I had it in there. I had it all wrapped up in bubble wrap, and the guy pulled it out, and he was waving all the guys to come out of the little shed that they're in. And they were all out there just having fun with that cast, and before I knew it, they were telling me all kinds of stories.
There's a military bases seems to be a hot spot.
Mm-hmm.
There's that one Army base in the state of Washington, right next to Mount Rainier. I'm trying to think of the name of it now, and it continuously escapes me. My dad was actually stationed there during the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks a lot about how the timber was, and he said that's some of the biggest timber he's ever saw. Yep. There's a lot of sightings there. Quantico, Virginia, has a lot of sightings. There's I think they call it the Quantico Monster, I believe is what it's called, and this has been spotted several times by Marines, Navy, and Army units there. It just seems like a lot of these big areas that don't support a lot of human activity seems to have, a lot of sightings, which makes sense. Animals tend to avoid people, and I'm sure, Sasquatch does the same. But it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
You got a whole boat full of trained observers.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
That see this. And that's, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Then another famous one up here in Virginia, which could be related to the one in Quantico, by the way, is the Mount Vernon monster.
Mm-hmm.
So the Mount Vernon monster was over there. Of course, everybody's heard of Mount Vernon. That's where George Washington was at, and the stories about the cherry trees, blah blah blah. But yeah, the Mount Vernon monster. I'm actually good friends with a gentleman by the name of Charlie. He worked for the Fairfax County Police Department at the time, and he was one of the officers called out to that site when that occurred, because a lot of the neighbors were hearing this screaming back in the woods, and there were even some neighbors claiming they were feeding this thing. So someone had called the police. Charlie was one of the responders, and that's where he had his first encounter. Now, he didn't have a sighting, but he calls it an encounter because he said that when the police went in and they combed the woods, they couldn't find anything. So they were out there for quite some time, and then they decided to pack it up and leave. Charlie kind of hanged behind. He decided that he wanted to kind of check things out on his own, so he hung behind. And while he was there, he said he was getting ready to leave. He had turned, and he said all of a sudden something screamed out of those woods. And the way he described it, he said he'd never heard anything like it before, but he felt it more than he heard it. And he said he said that it was like a reverberation, like just a vibrating in his chest when this thing screamed. And that made him, he was convinced at that point that there was something there that likely was some type of creature. But
my wife has added in there that is Joint Base Lewis McCord.
Okay.
Or Fort Lewis, as it's called.
Fort Lewis, okay. Yeah, I think I've heard that before. Because we visited up there near Mount Rainier back in, I think it was 2000, somewhere around 2014, I think is when we were up there. But
I'm not for sure the surrounding towns. I think, doesn't Bob Gimlin live in Yakima?
He lives near that area. And that's where we went. That's the reason we were there, was to go to the Yakima event that they had.
And there's actually quite a few sightings there around Yakima.
Oh yeah, we we drove all around that place. I couldn't tell you the name of the towns, but we traveled different areas and stayed in different places because we made like a 2-week trip out of it, and we even went and visited the grave of Roger Patterson, his grave site, and took some pictures by the grave site. But yeah, definitely a nice, interesting area up there. But you're right, your dad's right. Big timbers, man. Them Douglas firs are huge.
He talked about the cedar trees. He said that was the biggest cedars that he had ever seen in his life. He said some of them had to be probably 6-8 feet around.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they were huge.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Another thing that I'd kind of like to talk about is one of the most recent sightings we've had here lately was the one in Colorado, where they videoed it from the train. And I'm going to tell you honestly, I'm on the fence on that one. I don't know that that's factual. There is a area close to where that happened at, where they do a Bigfoot thing and they have a suit that looks similar to what that looked like.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of on the fence on that one. It's hard to tell, but now as far as the activity that was displayed there, that seems like pretty good Bigfoot activity. I mean, it come out, it was visible, and it knew it was visible, and if there was people there, and it just ducked down and blended in.
Right.
And yeah, that was. So I'm kind of on the fence. I'm kind of a little leery because there is that Bigfoot costume close to that area.
Yeah.
And that kind of leaves it a little bit of doubt to it, but there's, like I said, the way it reacted was what I would assume an animal like that would react like.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's I tell you, some of speaking about when we were up there in Spotsylvania, some of the other strange activity. Now, a lot of people try to mix in ghost stuff or UFO stuff, things of that nature, in with Bigfoot. And I've always been the type of person that says typically everything has a fairly simple explanation. I always like to think that everything has a simple explanation. And when you start bringing in all this other stuff, it just complicates me, because then you're like, okay, what should we be researching? And I just think it adds an extra wrench into the mess that you don't need. So.
Yeah, there was, like I said, there was a lot of activity there, and some of it, I've tried to explain it off, and I can't.
Right.
One thing was the lights that we saw there. I can't explain that. I have no earthly idea what that was.
Right.
I started with foxfire because we was all sitting around the fire talking about it that first night.
Yeah.
And foxfire is a fungus and it doesn't float.
Right.
So it couldn't have been that. And then I come up with gas. But I'm pretty sure if it was swamp gas, it would have all been the same color. And we saw multiple colors.
Right.
So I really can't explain that.
Right.
Of course, we had a lot of orbs in digital photos.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's floating dust. I don't know. But it didn't matter whether it was daytime or nighttime. Every digital photo that we took, there was orbs in it.
Yeah.
The screams that we heard, that was wicked.
Yep.
We had a lot of wood knocks, which I'm really leery of wood knocks now because there's so many people out there that are, trying to be finding Bigfoot and banging on trees and everything else. So it's really hard to discern something like that unless you see it actually happening.
Yeah.
It's really hard to discern. And that's one thing too that, I would encourage anybody that's interested in the subject of Sasquatch. If you go out into the woods, every sound that you hear is not Sasquatch.
Yeah. Right.
Be a little bit scientific about it. Think about it.
Right.
We had a couple people that were unfamiliar with the barred owl on that expedition in Spotsylvania County, and they kept saying that they heard something that sounded like a monkey.
Right.
and it was the mating call of a barred owl.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew what it was. I've heard that my whole life. And it was hard for some of them to grasp that, but that's what it was. But, Toby Tolman, who is from Minnesota, I believe, he gave me some like really solid advice, and I use it to this day. Toby's theory was you have to be 51-49. He said you have to be 51% sure that is an actual event that you're going to investigate, and 49% sure that there's a possibility that it could be a hoax. He said if those numbers are swayed, if it's 50-50, he says he won't investigate it.
Yeah.
He said if you have a 49% that you think it's real and 51% that it could be hoaxed, he won't investigate it.
Yeah.
So that's a really scientific way of looking at it. Mm-hmm. You've got to have certain, I guess, criteria to make sure, what you're looking at is real.
Right. Hey, Jay, and hey, Tennessee Cherokee. We see you guys. Thanks for coming on. Jay said he's watching the Stanley Cup.
Yeah. I haven't watched hockey in a long time.
No, me neither. All right, so we're at the halfway point. So we got our usual folks in here, so we need you guys to give us a vote here on what you think about this. Now, we had AI create a song for the radio show, and we want you guys to let us know what you think. Gary's wife says this should be the theme song for the show, so we're going to play it right now and let you guys vote for it and let us know what you think. So here we go.
On a dusty back road to the night go wrong, Billy and Garry calling the forest their home. In the twilight hours, they turn on the show. Sasquatch Watch Radio, where legends grow. Billy's got his map, Gary's keeping track. Ghost stories and whispers of a creature's track. Scratchy voices on the airwaves, listeners lean in close for the tale of Bigfoot coast to coast. Who under the pale moon's glow, they're searching high, they're searching low. Sasquatch Watch Radio, tell us what you know. Is he out there where wild tales grow? Boots hit the trail as the signal fades. Echoes of howls in the midnight shade. Flashlights flicker, hearts begin to race. Billy and Garry chase shadows in the twilight's grace. Calls on the mountainside east to share, deep in the mountains to the swamp's lair. Every legend told, every story sold, keeps a mystery alive as the nights unfold. Who under the pale moon's glow, they're searching high, they're searching low. Sasquatch Watch Radio, tell us what you know. Is he out there where wild tales grow? Colors on the line, sightings to share. Deep in the mountains to the swamp's lair. Every legend told, every story sold, keeps the mystery alive as the nights unfold. Who under the pale moon's glow, they're searching high, they're searching low. Sasquatch Watch Radio, tell us what you know. Is he out there where wild tales grow?
there we have it.
That's a good one. I like that a lot.
Buttworm says he's not a fan of country music, but he's heard worse.
Yeah. And of course, my wife chimes in there. Theme song, she says.
Oh, man. Yeah,
That is incredible how that does that.
Yeah, I know. It's fun.
It is really incredible.
Fun. Yeah. Have fun with this stuff. Oh, let's see. What can we get into now? Anybody got any questions out there? Trying to think of some other things I've done. Let's see. I can't remember if I've told this story or not. We went down to Northeast Texas and went down there and did some research. It was me and Tom and Tom Lancaster, friend of mine. He's a hydrogeologist. So we went down there and participated in an investigation right outside of Lake Mays, which is not too far from Paris, Texas. And in this area was an area where they bury all the duds. What do you call it again, Gary?
Unexploded munitions.
Yeah. So we had to go through a bunch of training before we were able to go out there so that we knew what to stay away from. If you saw a piece of metal sticking up, don't go near it, kind of thing. But we went out there, and of course they tell you to find a tree that you can climb because the wild hogs out there are pretty vicious. And they're out there. You can hear them. You know, it gets dark. You can hear them. They sound like they're fighting and everything else. But that was an interesting place. So while we were there, because we stayed there I think we were there for about a week. And on the very last night, by the way, Steve Coles was there too. Steve Cole's tent he actually slept outside that night, I believe. Slept in his camp chair. But so me and Tom had a tent, and I had a cot, and then he had one of those blow up mattresses, and we had like this 2-compartment tent. So he was sleeping in the back compartment, I was in the front. But I had my cot right up on the outside, almost touching the side of the tent. And this last night, we were tired because we had been researching late every night, and we had to leave the next morning, so we were tired. So we were all sleeping pretty good, and sometime during the night, I had what I thought was a dream. And the dream was that something had poked its hand through the fabric of the tent and had grabbed me on my right thigh area right above my knee and squeezed. And then in the dream, I grab a hold. I can't get my hand around what should be the wrist of this thing. And then I actually hit it with my fist, and it let go. So get up the next morning, and again, I'm thinking, had a dream or whatever. I get up the next morning, and I turned to get out of the cot, and I noticed my leg was hurting. So I pulled my sweatpants down, and there's this great big red, almost purple mark right above my knee and my leg. And then and while I'm sitting there thinking about it, I start getting, the hair standing up on the back of my neck because I'm starting to realize, this may not have been a dream, right? So I wake Tom up. Tom, he's all noisy in that bed, making all kinds of noise. He's trying to get up out of the bed. He's hilarious, by the way, because he's just a big old clumsy guy, and he just has a hard time, So he finally gets up. And the funny thing was he told me, he goes, well, let me tell you what happened. He said, last night, he goes, I was laying here, and it was, real bright moonlight. And he said, something came up to the back of the tent. And he said, the shadow was was whatever it was so big, the shadow was over top of the roof of the tent. He goes, and I just sat there because he said, I knew if I moved, this bed make a noise, I don't know what would happen. He says, I just sat there, and he said eventually after it was all, he didn't see it anymore, he went to sleep. So I think we had an encounter. I just know that when we got when we packed everything up, we didn't say a word to nobody. We packed everything up, and we probably drove 2 hours up the road before we would even talk anymore about it. It was just, we were like in shock.
That's a good one. I think I've heard that one before, but that's a good one. That's a good one.
I mean, some of the things that happen when you go out, and don't get me wrong, things don't happen every time you go out. Oh my God, I've spent hours upon hours upon hours, and nothing ever happens. You don't see nothing. You don't see, experience nothing. But you have those few times where something happens.
And it seems like too, with the research that I've done with you all and stuff, and even some of the stuff that I've done on my own, it's like when you have like that one encounter, it's like a firecracker. You've got that,
right.
And there's something else, and then there's something else, and then there's something else, and then man, it just goes dead.
Right. Then the other story, it always seems like I'm with Tom when this stuff happens. I don't know. I think he's like good luck or something. I'd bring him along. But we did another investigation up in the Jersey Pine Barrens. And we went out. I can't remember if I think it was the second night we were there. And him and I had already kind of researched the area. He had been looking at the maps and the aerials to find out where these old abandoned cranberry bogs were. So we found one that was a pretty good size on the map, and we looked at the topos, and he's like, you know what? He goes, we need to go out here. So we were able to drive the truck. It was the very thin road with the limbs and everything scrubbing the side of the truck. But we were able to get within like where we only had to walk like about 3/4 of a mile to get to this bog. So we get there, it's still daylight, it's huge, just huge bog with water in it. And there's like a bank. So we set our chairs up on the bank. Now, we decided to put our backs to the water because in our mind, okay, we got our backs to the water, so nothing's going to come up from behind, right? So we're looking into the woods at this point. So we're sitting there, and it's getting late. We've got a parabolic microphone so that we can listen. We've got some night vision. We've got trying to think what else we had. Of course, we had one of those big million candlelight flashlights. So we had all kinds of recording equipment out there, and we were sitting there. I think it was about 11. It was right around 11:30, almost midnight. And we're sitting there, and we're kind of dozing in and out. It's kind of a little cool, a little mist. All of a sudden, we start hearing these footfalls on the parabolic mic, like bloop, 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 and then it would stop. And then we heard a stick crack. I said, okay, all right, so we got something going on out here. So we're sitting there trying to aim it, try to get an idea of the direction. And this goes on for like 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden, I mean, it's total silence. Nothing's making a noise. And all of a sudden, it sounded like somebody did a cannonball in the cranberry bog right behind us, probably within 10 feet, because we felt the water off of it. The water splashes on the back. So Tom, again, he's just a clumsy guy. Tom's done got stuck in his camp chair. He tried to get up and fell down the bank and rolled to the bottom, trying to get out of the seat. I get up and immediately turn on the million candlelight power and turn around with the spotlight. I can't see nothing. The fog was so thick on the bog, you couldn't see 5 feet in front of you. So, so you're standing here, something's over there, but you can't see nothing. So you get this feeling like, okay, what are we going to do here? Right? Yeah. So meanwhile, Tom's getting back up the bank. I said, you know what? We might want to just gather up the equipment here. And I said, because we can't see nothing here. There was no fog in front of us when we were looking in the woods. We turn around. I mean, that thing is just blanketed with fog. So as we gather everything up, we're carrying everything out, and we're just looking over in this fog, just make sure we don't see anything. As we're walking, out, and I keep hitting the remote start to see if we're close to the truck. So we finally get to a point where we're close enough, and then the truck starts and the headlights come on, and we're like, then we get our pace and we get everything in the truck. So once we're in the truck, we're going through again, there's trees and brush, and it's thick, and it's just scrubbing the side of and I just looked over at Tom. I said, Tom, if something jumps out of this brush right now, I'll probably just die right here. We were just waiting to see something just jump out of that brush. But yeah, I tell you what, that was the scaredest I'd ever been. Was when that
talking about Tom, I've done a little bit of work with Tom up in Spotsylvania, and if that dude was to stand all the way up, he would probably be 7 foot tall. I mean, he's a tall, really, really tall guy. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because I'm short. I'm like 5'8", 5'9", probably closer to 5'8", to be honest. And
well, we shrink as we get older.
Yeah, I look more like an angry dwarf standing beside a Tom. I did a researcher, I guess. But that's probably one of the smartest dudes you'll ever talk to.
He is smart.
He is on it.
Yeah.
Something I'd like to talk about, Billy, and try to get some weight from everybody that's in the chat. What do you think that Sasquatch eats? There's a lot of stuff out there. You hear a lot of scientists say that there's not enough food in the forest here in the United States to support a giant, hairy bipedal primate.
Right.
And I'm off the wall on that one. There's plenty of food in the forest.
Yeah.
When we did research together and things like that, Billy always said, let's go grazing through the forest with Gary, because I will pick stuff and eat it as I'm going. And there's a lot of food out there. We did an investigation in Dolly Sods up in West Virginia, which that was a beautiful place.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful place. These big cranberry bogs was out there, and I was picking cranberries and eating them. And there was actually reindeer moss that grew on the rocks, and I was picking that and eating it. And there was a lot of different, wild edibles there. And I was eating it, and somebody said, dude, you're going to die. I was like, no, this stuff's all edible. I mean, it's here. This is, the food chain. This is what supports life, I can't remember now who said that. It may have been Adam. I can't remember. Which is funny because Adam did, 100 days?
Yeah, 100 days wild. Yeah.
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 So I'm pretty sure he ate a lot worse than some cranberries and some reindeer balls while he was on that show.
Yeah, I think them guys had gotten to the point on that show where they'd eat anything that they saw.
Yeah, I guarantee it.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a fun trip up there at Dolly Sods. That place, man, because they only open the gates at certain times because it snows, and that snow lasts up there for a long time, and them roads are impassable.
And it's really weird too. It's like you're not even in the United States, and you're there. It's not the forest that you're used to here in, on the East Coast.
Right.
It was spruce trees.
Mm-hmm.
There was cranberry bogs. There was reindeer moss.
Yeah.
You know, it was basically like you were in a different country. It was more like Eastern Europe than it was the United States.
Yeah.
And, you know, that just kind of goes along with the biodiversity that we have here.
Right. Yep. But that was fun. 'Cause I remember we found a footprint, or what appeared to be a footprint up there, and we tried to cast it. It had a lot of water in it. Didn't turn out the best. So but we also know there was a lot of big bear up there too.
Yeah, I still have that print.
Yeah.
We casted a black bear track up there. It's probably one of the best ones.
Mm-hmm.
Jay says he thinks they eat spam.
Everybody eats spam, Jay.
Yeah, if they eat spam, that's my kind of people right there.
Who hasn't had a spam and mustard sandwich?
Oh man, spam and eggs and rice. That's a meal right there. That is a meal right there.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's, you know, their diet is really diverse. The omnivores, I'm sure they eat meat, they eat plant material. There's plenty of stories of, you know, Bigfoot hunting deer, hunting hogs, hunting other things. And then too, there's plenty of stories too that they would squat down under a tree and eat leaves and you know, things like that. So I'm pretty sure, you know, it's a pretty biodiverse area, you know, where they, you know, what they graze on. And I think a lot of it has to do with what's in season at the time. And I'm sure it's really similar to the diet of a black bear.
Yeah.
And, you know, black bears are everywhere. The state of Virginia has exploded with the black bear population.
Yeah, we have quite a few. We have 3 regulars up here. You know, you can tell by looking at them with their size and everything. You can usually tell if it's the same individual.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got 3 up here. We've got 2 large ones and 1 small one that comes around quite often. So
we've only had 1, and I'm pretty sure it was a bear here at our house.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when I was a child growing up here in Dixon County, there was no deer. Absolutely no deer. You never saw a bear. You would see a turkey every now and then. Lots of rabbits.
Yeah.
Grouse. You might see a bobcat every now and then. But when I came back from California in late 93, the deer population had exploded. I mean, there were deer everywhere, and I was just completely amazed. We have a big turkey population here now. We have a large black bear population here now. And, you know, that's kind of one of the things that I'm saying. We're seeing all these animals come back.
Yeah.
And that just furthers my point that there's enough food out there to support a large primate. I mean, the natives lived in these forests for thousands of years before the first whites ever showed up here.
Right.
So I know there's plenty of food out there, but.
Yeah. What about coyotes? Have y'all seen an increase in coyotes?
We have a huge increase in coyotes, and my wife's cousin has a picture of some that I'm almost 100%, or they're calling them the super predators right now. But it's a 3-way mix of coyote, eastern gray wolf, and domestic dog.
Okay.
And on the game cam photos, when you first see it, you would swear that it's a wolf.
Yeah.
And then a side shot of it, it's not long enough or tall enough to be a wolf. You know, you think it's a coyote. But, I mean, we have coyotes back here 75, 80 pounds. And coyotes don't get that big.
No.
Well, they have to be mixed with something.
Yeah.
And the population it's huge right now.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, we have a lot up here. You can actually hear them if you go out at night. You can hear them off at the distance. They seem to like to stay up on the higher elevation out here on the kind of along the Appalachian Trail, which is probably like a 15, 20 minute walk from the house. But you can hear them late at night. Now, we've got a neighbor here in the community that has a mix. It's definitely wolf. It's a big dog. And he's pitch black. Got the long tail, and I mean, he looks just like a wolf. And, you know, when you look at him, he's intimidating, you know, but friendliest dog, come right up and want you to pet him and everything else. But, you know, if you didn't know that, yeah, that you'd be getting back in your vehicle.
Oh yeah. My brother and his wife actually raised 2 coy dogs. They were half coyote. They come to their house as strays, and when it comes to wolf dogs or coy dogs, most of the time they can be pretty vicious and attack their owners. And those dogs live like 17 years.
Yeah.
And once did they turn on my brother and my sister-in-law.
Yeah.
You know, they loved them. They were house dogs.
Yeah.
And they just blew me away.
Yep.
They howled. You knew they were coyote.
Yeah, right. But, yeah. Hoping one of these days I'll catch something other than a bear on my cameras.
You're in the spot for it.
Yeah. I according to Dr. Meldrum, with the bears.
1 to 3. For every 3 black bears, there's a Sasquatch.
That's right. So I got one roaming around somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Went on the Appalachian Trail, too. You know, there's a lot of sightings there.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that as many people hike that trail, I bet there's a lot more stories out there that's never been told.
Oh, I guarantee it.
People, and they won't talk about it, because, let's face it, most people already think that people that walk the whole trail are nuts anyway.
Yeah.
So I'd say they have a lot of stories.
And, it's pretty wild, too. Like in these big national forests and things like that, there's activity.
Oh, yeah.
Hunters and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll hear a few tales. Hey, I saw this, or, we found this kind of structure, or we found some footprints. But nobody come up and say, hey, I saw Sasquatch.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're afraid of people thinking that they're crazy,
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, I guarantee you. I remember I was down in town one day, and there was a couple folks in there in the McDonald's, and I knew they were hikers based on what they were carrying with them. So I asked them, I said, how far have y'all went? And they said, well, we started down in Georgia. I said, well, you've walked a pretty good amount. And so I asked them, I said, have y'all seen anything interesting? And they're like, well, like what? I said, well, I don't know. Bear, Bigfoot. They just kind of looked at me, looked at each other, and started smiling. But, they never really answered the question. So it just makes you wonder, if people see things and they're like, let's keep this one to ourselves.
One thing too, I'm reading a book right now, and I'm not going to get into the title of the book, but it talks a lot about habituations.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel that there is a lot of habituations out there, and people have these continuous experiences, where they're feeding them and all this other stuff. And they don't talk about it because they don't want anybody coming in there. And I think, a lot of that stuff it just kind of gets swept under the rug because, hey, they're seeing it like every day and they just don't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jay, are you crazy, man? Yeah, I like this one too.
Yeah.
I sure hope your ex's mom's not a listener of the show, because if we don't see you on the show next week, we'll have to send out a search party.
Somebody may be looking for you.
That's right.
I saw a comment there earlier, and I'm trying to get back to it. And unfortunately, me and technology don't work very well together.
I think we had a question up there, and I missed it. We had this one.
Yes, that's what I was talking about.
Okay.
I've got a guy here locally that's had, I think he said 3 encounters so far. And I'm wanting to get together with him and talk to him about it. Him and a friend of his actually did a local podcast, and they had me on as a guest one night talking about Bigfoot, and it was a 2-episode deal.
Mhm.
And he's had several encounters, and I want to get with him and sit down and talk with him. And where it's local, it's be easier for me to get to places. And
Yeah.
I'm not exactly woodsworthy much anymore with my knees. And
Yeah, makes it a little rough, doesn't it?
yeah, but that would be something that I'm interested in doing, is getting up with him and seeing what's going on there. There's actually a lot of sightings around here. People just don't talk about it because of the ridicule.
Yeah. And for me, I have recently went back to the location where I did my first track casting, that wildlife management area. I visited there for the first time, and it's been 10 years. And it looks a lot different. The trees are more mature. It's grown up more. It's thicker. But yeah, I've started kind of checking on that place and just seeing if anything's going on. But again, like Gary, can't walk it like I used to. But at least it's pretty flat in certain areas, so I can get around on the flatter areas. But all right, Gary, we've wasted an hour.
Well, that was a quick one.
Yeah.
That was a quick one.
Well, again, Mick, if you come up missing and we don't see you or something on next week's show, then
Check with your ex-wife's mom.
You might want to secretly send me her name and address or something so that we can send out a search party or something. But just be careful. Watch over your shoulders.
Yeah. Watch what you eat.
Right. Don't be eating our meatloaf.
Yeah.
It's funny. I had meatloaf today, actually. So. All right. Well, thank you all for listening to us babble tonight. We appreciate it. And next week we'll have a guy that I'm not going to reveal his name yet, but we'll have a guy that's familiar on the Bigfoot scene as far as he travels all over the United States and does, he does a lot of presentations at libraries and conferences and all types of different things. So we'll have him on next Monday night. So tune in for that. And until next week, I want to thank you all for coming. Hope to see you next week. Gary, don't do anything I wouldn't do out the campground. I want you to.
Unless it's sleeping. Unless it's sleeping, there's not a lot I'm doing. Sleeping and painting posts.
Just don't be thinking you're 18 and go hiking up a hill or something.
Yeah. Those days are long gone.
All right. So again, thank you all. We will see you next Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night, Boo. Good night, Emmy.